Doug, welcome back, and thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. Great to be here after 4 years since the last time.
It's 4 years, no way, that's crazy. I was trying to have a think about how long ago it was. 4 years, that's literally flown by.
Certainly has.
So you're on your travels at the moment as well, so I'm extra grateful for you joining us. I'm disturbing your holiday for you to jump on and record this, so yeah, thanks for doing that as well.
No worries at all. More than welcome. It's great to be in supposedly sunny Western Australia at the moment.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of rain here in Sydney as well, so you're not missing. I'm sure probably in Melbourne, there's probably plenty of rain this week as well. But what's been happening for you in those 4 years in terms of your business and what you've been working on?
Well, when we first met then and we did the first podcast, I just recently started Platinum 7. And since then, the last 4 years, it's just been growing quite nicely. So it's to a point now where I'm doing assessments basically every 3 weeks out of every 4, which is great. So my customers get detailed assessments about how their current Salesforce configuration is set up and is it secure, et cetera, et cetera. And that's doing really well. I've found out a lot more things I should be looking at, which is even better, because obviously over time, Salesforce has introduced new capabilities, and I've been looking at those as well and making sure I keep track of all the changes coming through. So my assessments have become longer, the actual content's become longer, and I'm finding a lot of interesting things where a lot of customers have got the same issues. Every single customer I have has got the same sort of problems, which is a bit unfortunate, really. And yeah, hopefully a bit more education. I do sessions with user groups, educating customers around what I think they should be doing with Salesforce around security. I just want to make sure people are safe, really.
Mm-hmm. So a typical security review now is taking 3 weeks. Is that right? It's a 3-week chunk of time?
No, it's about a week normally, but while I'm on the road at the moment, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I'm doing 3 assessments every 4 weeks, basically, regularly. But at the moment, I'm only doing 2 every 4 weeks.
And is that really true? Like the length of time, like I guess the size of the org, is it the amount of integrations, things like that? Like what dictates how complex a security review is?
I do the same stuff for every security review. However, some customers got many, many more users, which takes me longer to go through that particular part and just verify what profiles, what permissions, and that sort of stuff around that. And also people have got a lot of applications connected to the org, can take quite a long time as well to assess that. So generally it's the number of users in the org, which tends to make the initial part of the assessment a bit more complicated, but then the rest of it is pretty much the same because I'm just looking at metadata and seeing, is this set up appropriately? Does it have the appropriate settings, which I think are best practice, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, makes sense. So obviously we'll touch on some of the more recent security challenges, but if you think back over the last kind of 4 years, what have been some of the biggest security headaches your customers have been contending with?
In general, until the most recent issues that we've had with the phishing and people breaking into Salesforce that everyone's heard about, it's generally just been internal users having too much access. Although a couple of my customers have actually been breached and have brought me in to help understand why that happened and then stop it happening in the future. And a lot of the times that's been caused by not having controls over user change. So for example, if you've got a community environment, a Salesforce digital experience, and you've got your users out there and someone forgets their email address to log in, they ring up and say, hey, look, I've forgotten my email address. Can you set me up a new one, please? That's a great way to take control of an account, right? And this actually happened to one of my customers. And so if you are having communities out there and you let people change their email address, you let them do it themselves, that's fine. But if your call center actually will change the email address on the account for them, just verify that they are the right people before you do that. Because I've had this customer had an account takeover. So one of their customers was taken over and therefore all the data of that customer was leaked because the baddie got in. So we found out how they did it and that sort of stuff, which is great, but it's something which they're now put in place a process whereby, as Salesforce does, if you change your email address, it emails both the emails, the new one and the old one, telling you, hey, we're changing it. This is not right. Please get in touch.
Makes sense. Because when you think of like someone trying to get into an account, you would think like they're doing it on mass scale, right? They're trying to leak as much data as possible. So to target like an individual account, you would think it's more like malicious in terms of it being a reason that particular account was targeted though, right? Is it someone that wants to get that data that knows the person or something like that?
This was a business-to-business organization. And so therefore the account that was compromised was a business. And therefore it actually had customer information in the business part of it. So that had an interesting side effect. So it may have also been wanted to be done to badmouth the Salesforce customer as well.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things which is quite challenging. But a lot of folks think that just setting up Salesforce, making it secure is fine. It's perfectly good sense. And yes, that is true. But you've also got to manage people, because people are not perfect. No one's perfect, right? But you should never ever blame the user for an issue, because this issue could have quite easily been solved, and has been now, by just making sure that there's an approval process in place, or the customer gets emailed to the old email and new email. So, you've got to put these sort of things in place as well, not just making sure your org is secure. You also got to make sure your processes are secure as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I think that was one of the topics we covered in the first podcast around actually people can be the biggest challenge. Even if the org is secure, if the process isn't well thought through and secure itself, then there still could be gaps. Even if the system is built properly.
Yeah, correct, exactly. And the system should protect the users. It shouldn't be the other way around. You shouldn't be relying upon humans doing the right thing every single time to keep your environment safe.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's talk about the hacking events that did happen a couple of months ago. For anyone that didn't see that, could you kind of give some context to what happened, how it happened, and what you've been advising your customers on since?
Yeah, so what happened was a multinational hacking group decided that Salesforce customers would be a great target, because Salesforce contains a lot of great sensitive data, right? Every customer's got sensitive data in there. Everyone's got contacts, everyone's got accounts, et cetera, et cetera. So this group decided it's going to be great. Let's try and take on some Salesforce customers. And the issue was not with Salesforce per se. It was actually how the customers were socially engineered. So what happened was these hackers rang up, and it's called vishing, V-I-S-H-I-N-G. So it's phishing, but not with emails, but with voice. People ring up, and you'd expect some hackers to, the stereotypical hacker is somewhere different from where you are, right? And so you'd think, oh, I know the accent, therefore it's going to be a hacker. Well, these folks were attacking mainly native English-speaking companies, and they had native English speakers as the hackers. And so they sounded correct. And they rang up saying, hey, this is IT. I need your help to install an app into Salesforce. And what they were doing was they used the connected apps approach using Salesforce's data loader capabilities. So actually masqueraded as data loader. So when the user saw data loader, they said, oh, that's okay. Yep, accept. And what happened was the process, the hacker tried to connect this app. It then generated an 8-digit code, which then they asked the Salesforce user to just type in to the Salesforce setup area. And with that, it then let the hacker gain access as that user, and therefore extract all the data that user could see. Now, they always try to attack customer service organizations, because customer service users have to see all the contacts, right? Otherwise, they can't do their job. So therein lies the fun. So the hackers managed to get the account details and contact details of Qantas, Louis Vuitton, Google, Allianz Insurance, a bunch of other folks as well. And so my data was leaked in the Qantas one.
Yeah, mine too, actually. Yeah, thinking about that. So, when they're getting access, how are they taking the data? It's not individually going through each record and writing it down, right? How are they pulling that data out of Salesforce?
It's actually an API connection, and so therefore, as soon as they get allowed in, they're logged in as that user. They've got permission to log in as that user, and they can just query the database saying, select name, address, phone number, email from contact. Bingo, there you go.
Yeah, wow. What was the patch, I guess? What was the solution to that problem? And now moving forward, what are you making sure your customers are doing around that particular issue?
Well, Salesforce introduced a new capability. In the past, there was a capability called API access control, which was not activated in orgs by default. It wasn't there. You could ask Salesforce tech support to turn it on, and then it allowed you to change Salesforce from auto allow to auto block. And what Salesforce have done is introduced basically that with the early September. So basically now it's finished. I think it's rolled out everywhere. It's in all of my customer orgs I've seen so far, and also my own personal org. There's a new permission called approve uninstalled connected apps. Now what's happened is behind the scenes, Salesforce has stopped anybody connecting any new uninstalled connected app. Now, what an uninstalled connected app is, because it's a bit of a misnomer, installing, right? You think of installing, actually you connect it to your org and that's it, right? Well, that's not installing in Salesforce speak. When you go to DataLoader.io or you use any connected app in Salesforce, it creates a connected app entry in the connected apps area and setup. That's connected. But installing it, what that means is you get the ability to manage who can use that app. And you should either install or block every app in your current setup at the moment. And after you've installed it, you should then allow people to use it by changing the setting from anybody can use it to only admin approved users. And then you use permission sets and profiles to then limit who can actually access that particular application. Now, the trick is though, this is being grandfathered in. So anybody who's using an uninstalled app at the moment can keep using it. So any new ones who try to use an uninstalled app or try to install a new app, they'll get blocked by default. And so what Salesforce have done they've introduced this new approved uninstalled connected apps permission, which then lets you override that setting. In my personal opinion, you should never use it. You should actually stop the problem. Don't put a Band-Aid on it. You should stop the problem by going through and installing or blocking all the apps in there, changing it to only admin approved users, and then setting up the appropriate permissions and profiles.
Mm-hmm. So is there still the human element risk in this? Ultimately, the user granted the hacker or the vicious permission by typing in the 8-digit code, right? So
yeah,
obviously, like there's still ways, maybe not the API app route, but like it's still a problem, right? There's still that issue of like the training element of if you get a funny call, like don't do as they're saying basically, and they're only going to target companies where there's like a big scale number of users, right? Because they're not going to call me because I'd be like, well, why is someone calling me? I've got no IT department. They're going to call Qantas as an example, but it's still like a training issue as well as just having the process there.
Yeah, definitely. So with the settings Salesforce have done and actually controlling it, it basically means this hack can't happen again, which is great. And I've glossed over a few technical things in there as well. There's a couple of different ways they actually use to connect different flows, et cetera, which I'm not going to worry about. But basically, what they've done is stop this happening again, which is fantastic. But I think there's still ways and means, like you said, you should always educate your customers. You talk about phishing campaigns, you educate them around dodgy emails, educate them about dodgy phone calls as well, because no one's going to be calling you up from IT saying, help me install stuff into Salesforce, because they can already install it into Salesforce. That's the whole point. That's what IT knows, right? So I've heard about one customer who actually got all the way through to about pushing the button saying, let them in, when they said, this doesn't sound right, and actually stopped. So that company was saved by that person actually having a good double think about it and actually stopping doing it. But all the rest of them didn't, unfortunately. And all you need is one person to do this, because you as a Salesforce administrator or Salesforce security person, you've got to win every single time, whereas the hacker's only got to win once. And therefore, it's a really unbalanced equation. So people who are trying to protect environments have to always win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it. So obviously a particularly interesting and hot topic at the moment is AI, and obviously Salesforce are pushing Agentforce, and everyone's talking AI. So what's changing for you, if anything, in terms of how you think about security in this AI era?
Well, it's actually still the basics. Make sure you have all your data access set up appropriately, because these agents are still running as users. So everything in Salesforce is a user, and so even unauthenticated is still a user. So you need to make sure you control exactly which data your users have access to, which data your customers have access to, because the agent could run as either of them. So just be aware exactly what your configuration is, limit it to the least privileged principles approach. So give them as only little data as they need to have to do their job. But then with AI as well, you need to put guardrails around it. You need to make sure that it doesn't do things you don't want it to do. So for example, don't let it get talked into giving away product for free. If it tries to give a discount of more than 5%, it's got to go to a human. Those sort of things, that sort of guardrails should be put in place. So in reality, it's more about testing your agents as well, because it's a generative AI. It can say the same thing 15 times and then say something totally different on the 16th. So you're just going to make sure you test it thoroughly and make sure it's going to do what you expect it to do. But the data access is actually key. So understanding exactly how the agents work, when they flip from being unauthenticated to authenticated, and what can they see, etc., it's actually very important.
And also, I guess what they're willing to share, right? Like not just what they can see, because I guess the hacker's dream is to get an agent that hasn't been trained properly or doesn't have the right guardrails and starts exposing data on other accounts or other opportunities or anything like that that exists in the org.
That's true. I've seen a couple of stories around that, and that's something which I think a lot of customers aren't really being aware of, especially when you're doing roll your own Agentforce type stuff. When you buy Agentforce from Salesforce, they put a fair bit of work, not a fair bit, a lot of work into making sure that it's as secure as possible. It's just that you've still got to configure it, just like everything in Salesforce. So you need to understand thoroughly about what's going on and actually how then to use it appropriately. And also they're doing some stuff with agents for security as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that, because customers with event monitoring can actually feed that into Data Cloud now. And then that's going to be able to be used to try and work out behavioral analytics upon users to give proper anomalies rather than just the black boxes we have at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of leads in nicely to the next question I had around like tools or companies that have come to market over the last few years that are playing a big role in maintaining secure org. So is it still very much kind of driven by Salesforce and the kind of products or tooling that you've just mentioned, or are there any other like third-party apps out there or tools that you rely on quite heavily when you're advising companies?
Well, obviously this year, one of the big bits of news was Salesforce bought their own company. So they got Own Backup and Own Archive and that sort of stuff. But people forget that Own actually had Own Secure, which came from the RevCol purchase that Own made a while back. So now the Own Secure capabilities are being rolled into different parts of Salesforce capabilities. So if you had Field Audit Trail or platform encryption, the capabilities that Own Secure had are now free to you to use. So you should go look up the Salesforce Shield add-on package from Own. You can actually install that as a managed package and it gives you extra capabilities. It's fantastic. And then in the Security Center, they rolled in the little assessment plus the classification tool as well, and also the Who Sees What capabilities. So those capabilities of Own are now in Salesforce. I thoroughly recommend people check these out, because I used to recommend Own Secure all the time to my customers. In fact, many of them actually have Own Secure. So at the end of their contract, they'll roll into the Salesforce products. So Salesforce and Own, that merger was pretty flash. Also, GearSet bought Clayton. Now Clayton is a code scanning tool. And so GearSet and Clayton are now working together, which is fantastic. It's a great product. And I think people should look at Clayton as well. I also use DigitSec for code scanning, which is a very capable tool. New vendors out there though, Valo and Illyria are two products from the US, both headed up by ex-Salesforce employees who see a bit of a gap in the market and decide to go do something about it. So both Valo, that's V-A-L-O, and Oleria, O-L-E-R-I-A. Both those companies are doing some interesting stuff. If you're looking at protecting your data, have a look at those. You might find something worthwhile. Then obviously the incumbent good guys out there for a long time, App Omni and Varonis, they're always increasing the capabilities out there. So everyone isn't resting on the laurels. They're enhancing and growing and becoming better. So new people like Valo and Illyria, but also the well-known good guys out there, App Omni, Varonis, are also doing a lot of new stuff as well.
Awesome. And just, I guess, to finish, if there's, like I probably asked you this last time, but now in the modern day with everything that's going on and some of the things that you'd have seen and learned as well in the last 4 years, like if there was one tip you'd recommend that every customer goes away and does now, whether they're the CIO, head of security, a Salesforce admin, like what's the one thing that would make you sleep easier at night if you knew everyone did this?
I would like for everybody to just go through and do an audit of their connected apps. It was always one of my critical findings in my assessments that you don't have API access control. And now with Salesforce's new capabilities, that is not as needed as much, because Salesforce has done most of that work now by default. But still, going through and blocking or installing every connected app you have definitely is a good idea to actually make sure that your data stays safe, because I've seen customers have had apps in there that are sitting around since 2021. No one's used it since then, but it's still got access. So what's it doing there? Block the thing. You don't know what it is, block it and see who screams.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Doug. Always good to chat. And as always, if anyone wants to reach out and find you and ask questions, where's the best place?
Either LinkedIn or directly at platinum7.com.au. Have a look around, send me a contact request from there. Happy to chat.
Awesome. And I'll let you get back to your holiday. Thank you so much.
No, it's all, Brent. Appreciate it. Thanks for that. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.